knowledge, skills, and wisdom coming through studies, research, experience, and practice from Bhante Basnagoda Rahula, Ph.D., a scholar Buddhist monk, meditation teacher, writer, public speaker, and professor of English at Lone Star College-Montgomery, Texas.
This video answers the question of whether the Buddha argued or not.
Hello friends, welcome again to another lecture of mine. And most of these lectures about the Buddhist teachings are based on the questions that people ask in my speeches and discussions. So one of the most common questions they ask is whether the Buddha argued or not. It's a kind of a controversial topic. So I decided that topic for today's discussion. The belief that the Buddha did not argue is based mainly on his silence in dealing with metaphysical concepts. A person by the name of Vacha one time visited the Buddha and asked him 10 metaphysical questions. Such questions as whether the universe has an end or not, whether the universe is permanent or not, or whether the body and the soul are the same or not. Such questions. Instead of answering these questions, the Buddha maintained silence. Now, when asked why he remained silent, the Buddha replied that an answer to any of these questions would be ineffective for the attainment of enlightenment. So there are many other situations, occasions on which the Buddha refrained from arguing. Another example is the Buddha's encounter with a man called Pasura, and he was a popular debater during the Buddha's time. One day he visited the Buddha and challenged the Buddha to a debate, and the Buddha gave this response. This is a beautiful poem. Buddha said, "Similar to a champion fed by the king's food. So you are advancing in search of opponents. Go wherever you meet such opposing combatants. I have destroyed the desire to fight with. Nobody is here to refute your views." So that is statement. The Buddha is clearly stayed away from arguing on speculative concepts. This particular poem we find in the Sutta Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka 4, number 8. So the Buddha rejected arguing on speculative concepts. That's quite clear. However, it does not mean that the Buddha avoided argumentation altogether. It is true that he refrained from arguing on speculative beliefs and concepts and on topics driven by emotions. But the Buddha constantly participated in a different kind of an argument. That is what you call rational argumentation. Rational argumentation, the very foundation of the Buddha's teachings. Yes, on different occasions, the Buddha argued vehemently, and this claim may take some of you by surprise because some believe that arguing is not a healthy practice. So you ask your children, your partners and friends not to argue with you. Also, you are aware that we should stay away from arguing on sensitive topics. Most of you believe that argumentation is unpleasant and that it makes both parties unhappy. It is true that arguments driven by emotions and arguments motivated by the attachment to speculative concepts make both sides unhappy and reflect no wisdom from both parties. However, when it comes to rational argumentation, the results are exactly the opposite. For such an argument tends to bring both parties to a consensus, agreement. In fact, the very foundation of human progress is the rational argumentation. We discover and invent new ideas, new concepts, and new products, thanks to rational argumentation. Therefore, argumentation is an essential practice when it is based on reasoning skills. Such being the effectiveness of rational argumentation, it would be surprising if the Buddha refrained from using reasoning skills to convince his audience. The Buddha's rational argumentation consisted of these two powerful points that a reasoning person can hardly disagree. One, he argued on humanistic basis. Two, he argued on pragmatic basis. Humanistic basis means his argument came from good thoughts, loving kindness. According to the Buddha's teaching, the best thought is, that's what you call 4 kinds of inner development. That's what you call metta, karuna, mudita, upekha. So these 4 great qualities, these 4 qualities give a different, broader interpretation to love. So the Buddha's argument, humanistic argument, was based on loving kindness and compassion. For instance, he used that consistently against social discrimination. Some people were considered low in that society because of their birth or their belonging to different castes. Buddha stood firmly against these discriminative practices by saying, if you are kind to everybody, you cannot discriminate people like that. So it is based on humanistic practices, humanistic arguments. The second point is pragmatic basis. That means benefits. On numerous occasions, Buddha asked his audience to do this or don't do that based on practical value and benefits. So, you achieve these good things, therefore you should do this. You get these negative results, therefore you should not do that. So that means that he argued on pragmatic basis. Combined together, the Buddha's humanistic and pragmatic argumentation was extremely powerful. He won hundreds of thousands of people into his society, what we call Buddha Sasana, thanks to his rational argumentation. In fact, using the reasoning skills, the rational argumentation, is the very foundation of the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha himself used it, and his followers consistently use it. Thank you for listening.